Hi, this is Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang. We're coming to you from Northern California. Also in Northern California. In fact, everybody here is in Northern California. Starting on my extreme right, Keith Tier. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you for having me, Steve. Pleasure.
Next to him is another Brit. Yes, it's Kevin Marks.
Hi there.
Hi. I guess we're all Brits, so on my extreme left, in all but actuality, is John Toshak. Welcome, John.
Hello, Steve.
You've got this very strange kind of foggy behavior going on.
Yes. Thank you.
It's about 2 frames a second, but then they're being mixed together.
If any of you have ever seen Doctor Who, they have a thing called a Cyberman. John looks like a Cyberman with his ears and his... Kevin will...
Yeah, I should get my other headphones, but...
Yeah, I agree. And our center square, Paul Lind, Robert Scoble.
What's up?
Okay, Robert Scoble, what's up?
I just got back from Flipboard, and this week I was at Autodesk. But what's in the news? Steven Sinofsky got canned. I think that's the big news of the week.
Oh, also, Facebook's pages lost their reach.
I think that's all bullshit, personally. But, you know, we can talk about noise controls again if we want. But let's stick on Steven Sinofsky for 2 seconds. He ran the Windows team, and his disappearance from the Windows team was quite surprising, because when I was in Seattle, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, all my friends said they loved working for him, and now he's not there anymore. So what does that mean? I think there
does that mean they're
fight.
not your friends anymore?
No, I think no, they're still my friends, but I think there was a fight between Gates and Sinofsky, and it sounds like Sinofsky wanted to limit the dependencies.
Gates or Ballmer?
No, Gates is the one that Kara Swisher reported it was Gates that actually made the poll, and Gates really believes in integration across the company. And Sinofsky does not. Sinofsky is a guy who likes to ship, and therefore likes to protect his teams from having to take dependencies on other teams. He forced the Windows team not to take a dependency on the .NET team, for instance, because that was not working out. That was a Gates decision. Microsoft Vista, the disaster that it became, was because Gates wanted the Windows to be built on top of .NET. They started building it, realized that didn't work, started tearing things away, and eventually threw out all the code they had written, and then rewrote Windows from scratch. And Sinofsky was put in right at the end of the Vista era to try to fix that whole mess up. Did a really good job on Windows 7 and fixed all the bugs in Vista. And then was forced by Apple to really change strategy for Microsoft, and did a pretty good job of it. I played with Surface quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. I think he did a lot better than I was expecting, to be brutally honest about it. But now he's gone, and what does that mean? That possibly means a slower Microsoft, which is the wrong strategy to have right now, I believe. I believe now that they have Windows 8 out, that they need to actually move faster and ship more innovation and get ahead of Apple, or try to catch up to Apple and try to catch up to Google. And the fact that they're trying to integrate across company shows that I don't believe they're going to be an innovation leader, but maybe somebody will have some magic somewhere.
John Toshak, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to tell the backroom politics of what was going on. I mean, you can believe that certainly there must have been something going on where he was divisive. A lot of his employees were reported to be divisive, but you can't tell. he did ship Windows 7. Windows 7 is a pretty solid operating system. The new one, Windows 8, that that a lot of that is just a gigantic change within the Windows ecosystem, and of course it's going to be met with this kind of a stunned audience until people get used to it over time. But I think by Microsoft generally going and doing Windows and doing this operating system, and then also making the hardware, and then there's rumors that they're going to make the phone too. When they start alienating their partners, then kind of a lot of things turn against them, and it's really hard to control all of the voices that are arising just within Microsoft itself. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he can get. I'm sure he did. He was very successful at getting stuff done. But if it's the wrong thing to get done at that time, then maybe it is time for him to go.
Okay, so even though Scoble's saying sort of the opposite, which is that whether it was the right or wrong time for him to go, that to go toward collaboration across groups is a mistake. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think Robert was saying that collaboration. So the problem is that although Microsoft has a platform, their platform was meant for consumers to use. They actually don't have as much of a platform inside for the groups to communicate, and it's kind of the way Redmond's set up in the different buildings, and building 9, building 8, building 6. They're all different, and they have different vibes in those buildings, even though they look kind of the same. But yeah, I think that in order for Microsoft to move ahead, they have to collaborate on the social level, and they have to collaborate on the technology level. I think what Robert is saying, and I'm only surmising here, is that because there's so many interdependencies in the .NET framework, that whole architecture, it's almost like a house of cards.
Well, it's not just .NET; it's Xbox. If you need to ship that same UI and the same innovation on Xbox and on phone and on tablets and desktops, there's a lot of moving parts there, and that slows down innovation. And they already took 3 years to ship Windows 8. They need to move faster and get releases out every year, like Apple's doing. And Google's doing. Google, I just got an update on my new Android Nexus 7 this morning. They're shipping a lot of innovation very, very quickly, particularly contextual innovation, and Microsoft needs to get quicker to catch up to Google, or at least stay drafting it, not slower. And now that I've studied software development teams, the more people you put on a team, or the more dependencies you have amongst various teams, the slower things move. It just means more meetings, more emails, more. Now they have Yammer, so there's going to be more talk about how do you do this on Xbox.
There'll be more acquisitions, yeah.
But I think there's something else going on there, guys, which makes me think that Balmer did the right thing here. If you think about the conditions to be successful now, it's a combination of what you do in hardware, what you do in software, what you do in terms of distribution and go-to-market. And the OS ends up being somewhat commoditized, pushed down into being an enabler of everything else. And what I read is that a bit like Scott Forstall at Apple, that Sinofsky was very guarded, didn't share, that like the Office team really didn't know what was going on with Windows 8 until it was too late to do anything about it, and treated it as if the OS was still central and dominant and the center of gravity. It's almost interesting to see Google with Nexus and Microsoft with Surface moving into hardware, because it feels as if the only way to make money is if you do software, hardware, and distribution channels as your primary, what you're good at, and the OS becomes less and less important other than as an enabler, and that implies integration and a kind of a horizontal software and hardware view cutting across the company, rather than the way Microsoft's organized into fiefdoms.
Yeah, I was trying to get to that point, but you said it so well that I don't need to anymore. Is that the center of the universe is not the software or the hardware, it's this kind of this ecosystem behind it, and I think that's where that Microsoft initiative needs to be. That's that collaboration. It's not the deep thing that the artificial thing that was created in the Microsoft world, .NET here and Xbox there, things like that. It's another layer. It's abstracted from that. It's how these things all work together. There's a lot of things, a lot of development around REST APIs. It's all that kind of work, and one level below that, and then metadata on top of that. That's kind of the way the world seems to be working, right? And if somebody got that, then at Microsoft, great. But I guess maybe the Windows was so powerful within Microsoft that they needed a change. Clearly, that's what they felt.
I think they cashed the check on Windows 8, and then they got rid of them. I think it's as simple as that. They need the revenue. Then now they need to fix Office. We're going to have a really interesting day when the Surface and Office collide and don't produce a net plus. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it is, as the other guys have said, they've got a very historic development integration process that they're building this gigantic software monolith, and they're building it in the way that they've done that historically, and that what they're competing with there is the sort of more loosely coupled software stack that we're getting used to on the web side, on the open source side, and so on. The fact that all the other operating systems out there have open source subsystems is pretty significant, and that means that what the underpinnings of Windows still being defined by that one group, and that one group being more secretive, is definitely moving against the trend. If you think about the base of both iOS and Android is an original open source operating system. More so on Android. iOS has buried that, but it's still in there somewhere. But it's also the sense that software design as a series of services that talk to each other is the big change that has happened. And bits of Microsoft have been embracing that, but it hasn't. It's been fought back by the core Windows people. I mean, you can see some of it in the Surface stuff because of the fact that the Metro UI means that you can build things in a more HTML5 friendly webby way and have those deployed there straight away and fit into that world. But if you click onto a Windows app, suddenly you're transported back in time to the Windows user interface instead. And that's going to be interesting watching which side of that line people end up with their center of gravity being. Are they going to end up sitting on the Metro webby side, or are they going to end up sitting on the Windows classic app side?
Scoble, what do you think?
I think it's clear they're going more toward the JavaScript webby side. They made that, Sinofsky made that choice, and it's very clear the company is going that way and going away from Windows apps. And I think that's a good thing. I just don't know how you get to the promised land with Microsoft's team structure and innovation structure and all that. It's
don't you think it's kind of ironic that that JavaScript and Outlook Web Access, this crappy sort of we're going to make damn sure that we don't actually deliver any of our crown jewels in the browser strategy has now come back to haunt them, and they're betting on it.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the email I sent Sinofsky and Gates and Ballmer back in 2004, and I said, you guys got to go and start buying things. I told them to go buy Skype before it went to eBay. That decision not to buy it cost them $6 billion alone. So. And there was 13 things on this list, and Sinofsky wrote me back and said, use the words business value 13 times. He basically said, I'm running a $4 billion a year business. Go away. I don't have time for your little toys that, like, this was back when Flickr hadn't even gone to Yahoo yet, right? And Flickr got sold for $30 million. So to him, these little toys were bothersome and not worth paying attention to, and now they really are slapping them in the face. I mean, whether it be the content trends that we're seeing with Facebook. I mean, I just was at Flipboard, and we talked all about context and how getting the news is going to change based on where we're taking our phones.
So how's Flipboard going to survive after being cut off by Twitter?
Well, first of all, they're not cut off by Twitter yet. So, second of all, they're betting on the magazine model, and they're doing really well, by the way. Mike showed me a graph that they're growing faster than Twitter and Facebook grew in their first 4 years. Does that continue? I don't know. They do have some risks. If Twitter shuts off the feeds, things slow down. They are going to a human curated model, which will be very interesting. I think it's really awesome what they're going to do, but
it's like they're following Yahoo's path.
Well, no, it's more like following TechMeme's path, but mix it with great design, and that's that's going to be interesting to watch. It's several months away from seeing the strategy play out, but I am really excited by where they're going. I think the thing they need to worry about isn't Twitter cutting them off. It's the Google Glasses. If the Google Glasses get popular, why do you need flips in a Google Glasses UI? That doesn't make sense. Flipboard makes sense on a tablet, but not in the Glasses UI, and it doesn't make sense on a TV UI. You're not going to touch the TV from across the room and flip it.
How often do you use Flipboard? I mean, I use it like
quite
once
a bit.
in a while.
I use it quite a bit because it still aggregates all of them into one place, and I find it pretty useful to me. But
Do you use Pulse at all?
no, I'm not a. I don't know.
You
I
pick
think
one or the other, and
I
then
think you
just,
pick one or the other.
You don't need to switch.
Yeah.
So what happens when they don't have Twitter as a stream?
First of all, I think they're that's a big guess that they're not going to see happen.
Well, I mean, what the Twitter will do is charge them.
Hold on,
Keith, whatever that usage is, probably $2 to $8 million or something.
Yeah,
just be
Keith,
that's how Twitter's going to make money.
Keith, what were you saying?
I said I've actually been in that position where you make a bet on a relationship to a single company being important. In my case, it was Real Names and Microsoft, and it all seemed very rosy for about 3 years. But ultimately, you can't rely on the other party to make decisions that benefit you.
Yeah.
And that's not a good risk. I mean, they really should at this stage, when it's still easy for them, diversify their sources. I'd be talking to John Borthwick and Bitly a lot more, and just diversifying how you get the sources.
I think they are. I don't want to say too much because they asked me not to talk too much, but I think they're smart people. I mean, Mike McHugh was on the board of Twitter. He has deep understandings of where Twitter is going to go, and I'm pretty confident they're going to end up okay. I'm more worried for them about the news behaviors that are going to change because of context, and they need to worry about that first. If Google gets the context first, then why do we need Flipboard?
Well,
and
because not
means,
all news. Human beings aren't necessarily interested in news related to where they are. I mean, I find this when I moved from the UK to America, it immediately struck me. In the UK, the BBC 6 o'clock news is all international news, and no one really, and then there's a really small show that comes on afterwards, which is your local news that no one watches. In America, it's kind of the opposite. A lot of people watch local news, and there isn't very much international news. But I do think that people's tolerance for really local news is virtually satisfied by free papers and stuff like that. And the digital medium feels to me to be much more of a big news, major events, primary hobbies, the big things in people's lives.
It's not about location so much. Context goes deeper than that. For instance, I think both of us are going to the web conference. So on our news aggregator, why isn't there a web area right now? And it's starting to bring more and more news about the web. both from inside our email and inside our calendar and the web, bring that in there, and Twitter, right? So if people who are speaking are starting to tweet or put up interviews, I want to start seeing that stuff increasingly as we head to the web, which is, 2 weeks from now. Then at the web, I want to see a newsletter about what's going on there. And then afterwards, I want it to collapse and start disappearing. Sort of like cloud computing servers can do the same thing. You can start servers to do things like watch the Olympics and then disappear those servers and get rid of them. That's context to me. And I see a lot of areas for that. And Google is edging in on that in a lot of ways. I mean, yesterday they released a game that's based on context and location. They have Google Now that they're working on. They have this field trip app that as you walk around, it tells you stuff about where you are. You can tell that Google is trying to figure out where to go with all this stuff. And Google has the news aggregator called Google News, which has more news than Flipboard does, and they have a lot of understanding of how we read news and all that from that. They could really do some stuff here and run away with the game if they catch Flipboard with their pants down.
Well, they also have to execute because, I agree with you. They have this whole, they have all these assets, this platform for this context, and I use it. I +1 things that I'm interested in. I know, Ed Schlesinger's on this on the feed, and he's constantly +1ing. His context shows up in my Google News feed when I'm logged in, and if you +1 an article, it's generally about higher education or something like that. Sometimes it's about Microsoft. It shows up on my feed. The more people that do that, the more context they have about how you interact with other people. Yeah. But they haven't executed on how it actually works because they don't have they haven't inspired people to use it that way.
And they don't.
So I don't think people even know about it.
They don't have the namespace. @mentions are the namespace.
Yep.
All right. So what Twitter's doing is basically embargoing or blockading its namespace from various third-party developers. The question is how long are they going to get away with that, or are they going to switch business models and start to absorb it?
Yeah. Well, I think Steve, there's two namespaces that they care about. One is the @namespace, and the other is the hash namespace.
Yeah.
The hash namespace is going to be implemented horizontally across all these platforms because users will just do it.
Topics aren't a differentiator. There's hashtags are not ever going to be dominated by a single vendor, so they're not going to be monetized by a single vendor.
Right. Well. No, I think in the future we're going to see hash tag aggregation applications that cross-reference both the @namespace, the plus namespace, and future people-centric namespaces to create roughly what Robert just described. But I think that's in the future. But we're not
I think
far
that's
away
right,
from being able to do that. Access via APIs is going to be key. And if Twitter exclude the @namespace from those apps, Twitter will suffer.
Yeah, they are suffering from it right now. The question is who's going to blink first about this. And I don't think that the plus namespace has enough traction. John, you might disagree with me, but
no, I agree with you. I just think it's better. I mean, I don't know. It's so easy. It auto lookups everything. I use it very frequently, as you know.
From a tool perspective,
but
it's fantastic.
I live in Twitter.
From a tool perspective, it's fantastic, Google Plus. But since circles is a completely mystifying, unknown quantity, you have no idea what the social graph is that you're applying to it. So it has no power.
I think Google is challenged because of the need to do circle management ahead of time, and anyone serious has too many contacts to properly do that, unless they've got Robert's kind of focus, and not many people have. So I think the Twitter namespace is more organic. It emerges through use, and there's nothing you need to do ahead of time. But I do think on mobile you're going to see other namespaces, especially around the address book on the phone and the relationships between people using those address books that are an abstraction layer, even on top of Twitter and Google, but much more personal to the user emerge. So I don't think we're anywhere near close to the end of the game there yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, and if you think about it, Android phones have at least 50% of the market. I mean, I don't know how many people actually use the stuff that are on the Android phones, but there are features that are being built into the operating system now that just automatically upload every photo taken. It goes through goggles. It's automatically something that you can share. I mean, they're building all these things. I mean, it's insane how much they're building and how little anyone knows about it.
Well, I think they figured that out. The users come when the usage gets there. I mean, I'm using the photo upload feature on Google Plus. It's really, really great. And I just got new Android this morning, so I haven't even had a chance yet to play with the latest builds. But the world keeps changing.
That photo upload thing is awesome, and also the synchronized Chrome is another thing that's really good. So, like, I use Chrome on my iPad now, and I use it on everywhere, on everything, the Nexus and the PC and everything, and synchronizes all the. I mean, it's really insane. I mean, I don't understand how they can do so much engineering around this and not have one person who can talk about it. There's not one person out there.
I think
discuss it in a few
I think you're missing Vic and Larry Page. I think Larry Page can't talk very well right now. He still is hoarse from some sort of throat thing that he had. But I saw him at Google Zeitgeist, and he's very articulate on this stuff. I nailed him with, the fact that he doesn't have Facebook's data, and what does that mean to the Google glasses? And he had an answer. It's not a satisfactory answer, but he's very clearly thinking about it. And I think you're going to see a consistent message come around next year.
Well, wait a minute. What was the non-satisfactory answer, if he had one?
He doesn't have the Facebook data. That's the non-satisfactory answer, and he's trying to get it.
So the answer to "Are you screwed?" is yes.
Basically, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
I asked.
I don't. That doesn't sound like a real prescription. It's like asking Sinofsky what he's going to do next.
Run Flipboard.
I agree.
Doesn't Metro look exactly like Flipboard? Didn't we talk about that before?
It has tiles. I don't know if you call them active tiles on Flipboard, but.
What's your shirt? Your shirt looks like Flipboard.
It's my Olympic shirt, man.
Yeah, I know. It's like Wenlock on there, the little cartoon character of Wenlock, the place.
They're little sports characters.
Oh yeah, it's a collector's item.
Yeah.
So I haven't turned on my Nexus 7 in 2 days.
Did you get the iMac Mini or the iPad Mini? I mean. Yeah. I just Mike McHugh was showing me his and said he hasn't turned on his Retina display, and I said, "What about the fonts?" He said, "What about the fonts?" He goes, they're blurry, but I don't care."
It's so ridiculous.
Then you got to get one of these
to show
as well.
that device. It looks like every other device.
Yeah, one of these
the box
as well,
is clearly
and then
different, but the device itself, it looks like every device.
And Keith, you were talked over.
Yeah, so I think Keith was positive and John was negative.
So they canceled each other out, and we couldn't hear anything.
No, because I win right here. This is fantastic.
Plus, I've
this
got
is amazing.
micro earphones.
This is going to be the only iPad that achieves any kind of lack of fragmentation in the future.
Well, Steve,
are you using it more than the Nexus 7 now?
He said that, yes.
That's why I started by saying that I haven't touched my Nexus 7.
Okay.
Actually, I touch it every once in a while by mistake.
Because it
looks exactly the same.
It looks.
But talking about fragmentation, Steve.
Yeah.
It feels to me as if Google may have come up with a solution to the fragmentation problem. It almost feels as if Nexus is a fork of Android that's going to be 100% controlled by Google. And of course, it's Android 4.2, it's Android, But this Nexus brand, which plugs together hardware with the latest version of Android, I'm not sure this is what they're doing, but if what they're doing is more or less giving themselves the advantage Apple has in owning both the hardware and the software, that feels to me like the only path where Google can end up with a platform that is not fragmented and is as attractive to developers as iOS is.
Yeah, and that's the same strategy that Microsoft is employing with Surface.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they had to fire the only guy who gets anything done. And what does that say about Google, that they're, this device does everything that Nexus 7 does, only a little better. So at that point, if you can aggregate all, I mean, the only thing this doesn't do is provide a hook for Gmail. And I predict that Google is going to come under increasing pressure to open up Gmail and Gtalk to other platforms besides Google.
What? They're both built on open standards. You can use IMAP for Gmail, and you can use Jabber for Gtalk. They're both completely open.
Let's talk about
Apple shipped Gtalk support.
Yeah,
Apple like macOS 2002.
Yeah, let's talk about this, Kevin, since you disagree with me.
Yeah, and also to say
have you been following, Kevin? Have you been following the discussion around Maps?
I've been following the discussion around Maps.
Okay,
yeah.
So where are we on Maps from Google?
The rumor today is that they've got something ready to release to the store. That's
right. And what is that? And what is that app going to do?
I presume it's going to do what the Android one does.
Which includes what key feature that
latitude,
what key feature that Google refused to let onto the iOS platform. The answer would be navigation.
No.
Yeah.
No, Apple refused to let Google put stuff onto the iOS platform.
No, not in that case.
No, I think Steve's right, Kevin.
Yeah.
No, it depends. You're confusing a platform and an API.
They were trying to launch the Nexus and the Android platform, and they wanted a differentiator and wanted a reason for people to buy that device.
On the iOS, and Apple said "fuck you," and they had to go to the FTC and argue about it. And at that point, Vic and Co said, "Well, okay, we won't bother building stuff for iOS first if you're going to chuck us out the store all the time."
Mm-hmm.
And that was the.
I agree with that. Yeah, whether it was a smart move or not, I think that
I'm not saying it's a smart move. I think Google
Apple called their bluff with the Maps, with Apple Maps, which you may think that it's lousy, but I'll tell you, when I was in Orlando, when I was in everywhere I've been on the road, which I've been a lot of places recently, that my iPhone 5 tells me what to do, and I listen. And because the little voice,
which is why you're here,
Siri, it said, Siri, go downstairs and do the show. So that's a complete.
Go and buy an iPad Mini.
That's what Apple fanboys like myself have been waiting for 2 years, and somehow Apple
because Apple would let Google ship on it.
So somehow Apple forced Google into the marketplace with the original strategy that they had when they endowed the iPhone originally with search and maps. So my bet is that there's going to be pressure from this device to push Google Talk in an authorized Apple app that actually works on iOS from Google. And until they do that,
Google's been putting a lot of apps out on iPad.
What?
Google's been putting a lot of apps out on iPad.
Exactly. But the one that matters right now, once I get my Gtalk, I'm done with the Nexus 7 forever.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Oh, come on.
This was the thing.
The Nexus 7 is done by Asus. It's debatable whether this even leapfrogged it, and if it did, it's minor. And then the next one will come out. It's what they're doing is they're just creating a whole brand new market that rips out the PC industry. Under Sinofsky's former wings.
I agree.
This is the new device. It's not like one or the other. Oh, I'm never going to use my Nexus 7 again. Well, it'll be the Nexus, 7,
If you have to
with
think
another
about,
operating system
first
done
of
by
all,
Samsung. It's just going to go on and on.
This is all about pockets. There's only one pocket that this works in now because it's
You know
bigger than the Nexus 7.
Most
the
people
Nexus
have to have a
7,
special pocket made for that thing to fit in.
The
It
Nexus
just happens to
7,
fit in yours.
there is a special pocket. It's called the pants pocket. It works fine.
Does that fit in the jeans pocket too? Oh.
Yeah, it works fine.
Go get I don't have it up here, but go get a Scotty vest, and you can put a full-size iPad in there.
Yeah,
and
I already
Nexus
get enough.
7. I fit a Nexus 7 and a full iPad and an iPhone and a bunch of camera gear and a bunch of these batteries. See these batteries?
What the hell is that?
This is the trick, the key to life, man.
The external battery, yeah. I was doing that last week.
Look at how pathetic that looks.
This is the Mophie pack. Yeah, it's pathetic until you have a hurricane hit you and you don't have any power for a week.
I didn't say
this
that
thing
it
lasts
was
5
pathetic.
days.
You look like my favorite Martian.
You look like Al Franken.
Oh, man,
on Saturday Night Live.
I'm going to Europe. I'm going to Europe, and I want my batteries, man.
It's very cool. I didn't say that it was.
They have
pathetic.
electricity
I said
in
it
Europe
looks
go
Robert,
there.
these days. They're pretty advanced.
It looks pathetic, but it works.
It's fantastic.
And I got about 5 of these cords now. So this is
just not going there.
This is the new cord. And by
You're
the way,
not
look
going
at
where?
this nice element case, one of a kind. Nobody has it yet. That's really cool. Anyways, toys.
All right, so Keith, you have to leave a little early. So you were going to say something, and if not, goodbye.
I was going to say I've even got a better case than Robert. Look, this is my iPhone 5 case. It's got my brand on the back. It's called. It's another example of Brandwich.
Yeah. Very cool. Actually, I saw one case that was cooler than either of ours. Barry Schuler has 13 3D printers in his house. He's the former CEO of AOL, a rich guy, and he has he 3D prints his own cases with whatever he wants on them, and that beats all of us.
Yeah, but he's just weird. Let's admit it. And I'll see you guys next week.
All right, thanks a lot, Keith.
Bye.
Thanks.
So now that he's gone, we can actually talk about him behind his back. No, listen, seriously, Kevin, on the chat room, you're saying that that the iPad Mini is worse than the Nexus 7. Do you have both?
I don't have both. No, I tried the Mini
thank
out.
you. So,
If you send me a Mini,
the witness can step
I'm
down.
not spending $329 on it, frankly. I don't think it's worth.
There's some places that I like Android better. The notifications
Do you have one?
are still better.
Do you have one?
Yep.
Not
No.
yet.
Okay. So
But
the
I've
witness
had my
may
hands
step
on it.
down.
Yeah, I do have I have an old style iPad, right? And and I have an iPhone 5. So I have the Micro and I have the Maxi. I just don't have the Mini yet, but whatever. Android is still. I like Android on notifications, and I like Android for contextual apps. I'm seeing a range of
Come
apps
on,
that.
Android notifications suck.
That's not true.
Bullshit.
they do.
Notifications are lovely.
Where are you going?
On
with
the
this?
Nexus 7 Android
Where are we
notifications?
going with this?
Oh, please. I'm opening up a Coke Zero.
Where are we going with
Sitting
this?
back.
How do they
Listen to
suck?
this notification
Steve,
discussion.
tell me how they suck.
AOL Android's notifications are more in depth. They're more
More in depth.
Fuck yeah! Look
Up at the top, it says new Google Plus notifications. It's got three
and it has-
lines
and it has
of
3 lines with
gibberish.
the
You have
iPhone.
no idea what the individual ones are.
Open
and you
it
can't
up. You
click on any of
unpinch
them
it.
either.
No, it's right there, baby.
Yeah,
It's
keep
very
punching.
nice. I find these notifications much more
193 new messages. That's helpful.
interesting. Well, that is helpful. Now
No,
I know
it's not
how many
helpful.
I'm missing. It's a lot more nice. It's a lot nicer. The notification system.
Apple stole the notifications from Android and then did it better.
And then made them worse. Yeah.
no,
Well,
made them
that-
better.
It
No,
made
they
them
were.
simpler, which there is something to be said for simpler. People like Steve like simpler. I like to have a little bit more information. You get to choose now, right?
It's ludicrous for you to say that there's more information there. I mean, I think the Nexus 7 is fantastic. However, the notifications on it suck.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
I need to show you some stuff, Steve.
Okay. Well, yeah, you wrote an app that doesn't suck, but how many people
Yeah.
have seen it?
Well, yeah, you've got the apps need to update themselves, and that is an issue, sure. But if you look at the notifications you get from Path, the notifications you get from Facebook Messenger, they're to the point, they work well. The notifications you get from my app, yeah, they're nice. The ones you get from Twitter are still crap. You need a bit of adaptation to actually fit in with the
But
new
that's
UI.
not a coincidence. The market for actionable
Yeah, but all the ones on iOS are
information
crap.
is owned by Apple right now, not by Android.
Nah.
There's no owner.
No.
Of course
Well,
there is. Why
where's
do
like,
why
I
do they,
own you.
why is the why
Where's
do
Steven's
developers write for iOS first?
I'll tell you why, because I interviewed the head of eBay's mobile this week, and he said most of his usage, most of the dollars that goes through eBay is through the iOS app. iOS users are heavier users than Android, and I hear this over and over and over again. They do more financial transactions, they do more actions, they
changing.
do more reading. No, he said it's actually not changing per person. The thing that he said is changing is there are more Android devices in the world. Right now, 6 Android devices sell for every iOS device. But he said even with the 6-to-1 ratio, the iOS developer or user is outpulling the other 6 Android users.
So,
and that's
how
why
is it
developers
changing,
are going
John?
on iOS first.
How is it changing, John?
Well, the latest studies show that it's catching up as far as dollars per app that are being
Per app, but
released
not user.
on Apple and Android. And the
Per
number of apps has caught up at 700,000 each. So, I mean, that's changing over just a year ago, where there was not even close.
Per app, not per user. Right now,
Yeah,
it's
that's what I
6 to
said.
1.
So dollars per app is catching up.
Right, but that's because Android has 6 users for every user on iOS. That means they're doing 1/6 the web traffic.
Yeah, but
and
eBay doesn't
financial
pay per
traffic.
user
Who
of
cares?
iOS, they pay per user of eBay.
Right now, they have more dollars going through iOS than they have going through Android. He says that will probably change in the next 6 months. Android is growing
It's because
fast.
people you buy on the Maxi iPad and not the other ones
No, it's
necessarily.
the phone user. The phone users are richer on iPhone. They use more apps.
come
They
on.
buy more things. Sorry, this is I hear this consistently over and over and over again. I was just with Flipboard. They are on Android and they're on iPhone. They said the iPhone users are way ahead of Android in terms of usage.
What can
Pat
a
said the same
user of
thing.
Flipboard do
eBay
differently?
has $10 billion
It's like
going
reading
through the
a
apps.
newspaper. It's
What?
like saying somebody who reads the Washington Post is more educated than somebody who reads the New York Times.
No,
It's a Flipboard. It's a stupid app.
the Wall Street Journal is more educated than the USA Today reader, and that's why advertising in the Wall Street Journal is much more expensive per user than it is in USA Today. Users are not the same. You keep thinking that users are the same. They are not the same.
I don't think they're the
early
same.
adapter.
I think
just
that it's
spoke at another
catching up.
conference. We asked everybody to hold up their iPhones. 85% of the audience held up their iPhone. I asked how many people have Android. 15%. This is the early adopter, heavy influencer user. The users are different on these two platforms, and that's why developers go where the heavy
Fine.
users are. First.
That's the way it always was.
It's the switching
Those are the
because
same
they're
people
not-
bought the next device too. It eventually catches up, and that's the way markets work. No one could afford a car at the beginning, and the only people who could afford a car could drive. Eventually cars became pervasive.
Developers
And now
have to
90% of
decide.
the people can't drive.
Developers have to decide where to put their resources. The iPhone platform is not fragmented the way the Android platform is. What percentage of Android users have this new Jelly Bean release that I just got this morning? Near zero.
It doesn't matter. The apps still
That's
work
the
on both.
developers. Developers have to hire people to do these things. They're not Salesforce. They don't have a room of 100 developers to build something.
We have more, but they'll still have to develop on iOS too. Didn't you say they're releasing a new update every few months now too? That just happens that everyone gets the same hardware, but they're still releasing 3 a year or whatever. Every time a 0.01 release of iOS comes out, I said, I get this thing. 48 updates are necessary, and I have to go through and say, okay, update all, and then it takes forever. At least on Android, it just does it automatically.
I agree. I think that Android is a much more sophisticated networked platform.
Yeah.
However, I agree with Scoble that it's fragmented. It doesn't, I think they're trying very hard to develop Nexus as the sole, reference implementation release standard. And I think they're going to have a really hard time of doing that. I think they're going to have an even harder time trying to switch from ASUS to their own Motorola unit. And
well, they'll switch it around. They'll get Samsung to do the next one, and then they'll do ASUS again, then Motorola. I mean, that's what they've said they'll do. It seems like that's what they've been doing.
But it does tend to limit their ability to move forward, to be able to roll out new. It's basically.
How has it done that? Just a few months ago, the Nexus 7 was like groundbreaking material. It was amazing. It came out of nowhere. And then it was just a stunning device. It was amazing.
It is
and
amazing.
Now something else came out.
It continues to be amazing. The only problem with it is that it lags in terms of corporate adoption, which means that I can't get any of my business email on the device. Now. Yeah, for now. I mean, I'm alive right now.
Actually, you can get the. Well, it's another. Never mind. lots of corporations can use.
Lots of corporations use
Gmail.
They're on Gmail.
I accept your premise. Do you accept mine? It lags. Is that a fair statement? I think it is.
I think Apple has locked up the enterprise for tablets and
I think
phones.
Microsoft locked up the enterprise for a long time.
That's shocking. That's a shocking statement to me.
Which one?
That he thinks the game is over for enterprise on Apple.
It's not over. It's just locked up for now.
Personally, I like that statement because I like iPads, but I think that's nuts to say that when you have so many users who are still using PowerPoint and Excel and Outlook in the enterprise, and they're now being offered a pretty nice product in Surface and coming within a month or two, these new high-end Windows Surface, Windows Pro laptops, Windows 8 laptops. You're nuts if you think that at least X% are going to stay on the Windows platform and not go Apple platform. I think that's absolutely nuts to think that way.
I think people are just bringing their own devices into work, and then IT support has to support them. And the Surface.
Have you hung out at a
new Surface Pro is like
store?
a PC. It's like a notebook, a little Ultrabook. It's like the next generation.
I think the Microsoft
Ultrabook.
strategy is brain dead.
I do not copying Apple.
I think that the Microsoft strategy is brain dead. I do not think that Surface or Surface RT or any of those products are going to do anything better than in terms of fragmentation than what Google has done with fragmentation. Android is ahead of Microsoft in terms of solving this problem. Microsoft is not going to solve this problem. How many people use Excel on the desktop versus the phone? How many people are going to use Excel on the phone or a tablet?
I don't use Excel anymore. So.
Well, that's my point. It's an important market, certainly for the enterprise, but increasingly enterprise applications are being atomized at the server and pushed out as bit changes. Microsoft is doomed.
I don't think so. When you watch people use the Surface after they get over the hurdle of learning a new UI, it's quite nice, and the Office on it is quite nice, and that's what most people want in the
Can you
enterprise.
demonstrate it for us?
No, I don't have one of those.
Exactly.
Exactly. This is the reverse of the iPad.
There's a lot
argument.
of people in the world who don't look like me. If they all looked like me, they'd be on Facebook all day long.
No, come on, Robert. You can't have it both ways. You can't be Mr. Champion of Normal and somehow be
No, I like being out there, but I I sit next to people on planes, and I know there's a lot of people who just like using PowerPoint. That's all they do all day long. I can't stand that. It makes my skin crawl, right? But yeah, what is that? Google Docs and spreadsheets.
Google Docs spreadsheet on the phone works pretty well.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
It does. I've used it.
I mean, that's great, but is that going to be the answer to the
it is. It's a better answer than Microsoft's custom apps.
The reason they fired Sinofsky is because Windows got fired.
Right, but has I haven't used Microsoft 365. How well does that work on the web? For this
exactly.
stuff?
But if you think that the Google Docs works well on the web,
I do.
It does not. My daughter was doing a report last night, and it recalibrated it and put it into alphabetical order, and she looked like, she had just finished doing something that took her 3 days to actually get used to the idea that she had to do it, and it just disappeared on her.
No,
it didn't disappear. It was there.
There's some people arguing that the browser
on her part. What?
There's some people in the chat room. I think Charlie Isaacs or somebody, one of these guys. I saw somebody comment that there's going to be everything's going to be in the browser. After spending the morning at Flipboard, I can say that is categorically false. The ability for developers to innovate and do things in the browser is just not there. And when you see some of these new apps coming out, they're mind-blowing in terms of the quality and user interaction capabilities that browsers just don't get close to. I mean, even the best Pulse browser app for Windows 8, which was built for Microsoft, with Microsoft, all for the new IE10 browser, and it's pretty good. It lags on interaction. It just doesn't feel as nice as Flipboard does, and that's going to be a huge difference. You can build a lot of apps on HTML5, but not the good ones. And the good ones are going to be the defining way that these platforms get articulated. When you see the TV ads, they're going to show off textbooks that you're using your fingers with and zooming around and doing things with. They're not going to show off some enterprise app with a form that you're going to fill out.
Increasingly, the things that are going to win are going to be apps that use the web and the network effect to be able to deliver information that their competitors cannot deliver as fast.
Yep.
Right now, Google's got a real good track record with supplying that kind of capability, and they are ahead in that. Apple is catching up fast.
Well, the one thing the Nexus 7 has is it puts another $100 in your pocket too, and that does go a ways with a lot of people.
It's $100. This device is $100 less than the iPad.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So.
And they're selling. How many more are they going to sell because of that $100? $100 does matter to a lot of people, particularly people who are struggling economically around the world.
I don't disagree, but people who have jobs are going to get this one. They're not going to get the Nexus 7.
Like I said, users are not the same. That has implications down the road. This is why eBay still is building the best apps for iOS first and then copying them and bringing them over to Android. And why most developers, not all, but most developers follow that pattern. It's an Instagram pattern. Build for iOS first, then move over to Android. Flipboard's doing that. Highlight has told me they're working on an Android version. You go all the way through. Path did that, right? You go all the way through the consumer apps, and they're all starting on iOS and then moving to Android. There is a break in that pattern, and it's called context. If you're building apps that need to know more from the contacts, or more from the radios, or more from the dialer, the phone dialer, you'll see those apps first on Android, and then they'll copy a cheaper version or a less featured version over to iOS until Apple opens up iOS. I bet Apple is going to be forced to open up iOS in the next 18 months, but it'll take a while for Apple to realize that they need to open up and figure out how to do it.
Well, I agreed with most of what you said up until that comment. I think Apple is far more engaged about this subject than, say, Microsoft is.
Oh, absolutely. I think Kevin actually nailed it. That Microsoft it was built on an old model and is struggling to get into the open model. Context requires a more open model, and the more open you get, the better you're going to be. We're heading into an open age of systems, and you see it all the way through the stack, from Open Compute on the data center to OpenStack on the cloud. We're winning deals that are just mind-blowing over Amazon because we're open source. Developers tend to want open source because it lets them innovate faster and do it for less money, and I'm seeing that trend throughout things. That's why Android is an interesting platform. That's why I'm still going to carry my Nexus 7 everywhere. There are things that you can do with Android that you can't do with iOS, even though I like the iOS cleanliness and fit and finish and all that fun stuff.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, Google told me they are working on a YouTube app. It should be out as soon as Apple approves it. We keep hearing rumors of this new mapping app. What's that?
Well, they already shipped the YouTube app.
Yeah, the YouTube app is shipped for a month and a half.
On iPhone, not on iPad.
Okay.
Not on iPad.
Oh, okay.
My sons are iPad users, and they really hate the web. My son refuses to use iOS 6 because it removed the YouTube app, and the YouTube functionality on the web really sucks compared to that app. And so we're waiting in our house for that app to show up.
Okay, but that's a blip on the radar.
How many people
use YouTube? It doesn't suck that bad.
It sucks. It really does suck that bad, actually.
The only thing that sucked about it was I had to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
took about 2 minutes.
It sucks compared to the apps. The app is just smoother. It doesn't open up multiple windows. It doesn't confuse people. The interface works better, is smoother. This is the HTML5 argument.
All right, so I want to wind this down. I want to talk to. I want to ask you a question, John Toshek. Does Google have a difficult decision to make, which is, are they going to get attacked by Microsoft, and are they going to have to band up together with Apple to fend that off? Or if not, what will happen?
I'm not sure why Microsoft comes into this. They do have a war on Microsoft right now with the apps. They don't seem to be progressing as fast as people want them to on the core Office apps, but maybe they don't want to. As far as teaming with Apple,
is Microsoft a threat to Apple or Google? I say Google.
Say it again. Apple and Google.
Microsoft is a threat to Google, not to Apple.
Microsoft is a threat to Google, not Apple?
Yeah, that's what I say.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so what do you say?
I
Do I have to answer that why?
Yeah.
Me or JT?
Go ahead, Kevin.
So, Microsoft is not a threat to Google because that's the threat they've been fighting against most for the last 10 years because Eric was obsessed with it. So they're ready for whatever Microsoft throw at them. And what they've been focusing on is being extremely web focused and responsive, and not building standalone software. And yet, Google Docs is not quite as thorough as Word if you want to futz around and style everything, but wins completely on collaboration and not mixing your shit.
That's not Microsoft being a threat to Google. It's the other way around. Google being a threat to Microsoft.
Google's a threat to Microsoft, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm not asking the question about what Google is a threat
Yeah,
to.
but so I don't think Microsoft is a threat to Google at all. No,
you don't.
I don't. No.
Microsoft tried to be a threat to Google by going after the quantum stuff, and they kind of backed out of that in a big way. On search. I mean, Google's revenue engine is search ad dollars.
But on mobile.
And I guess,
on mobile.
I don't know. They're just two different kinds of companies to me.
Yeah.
So you don't think that they're a threat to
they're not a threat to Google because
the
Surface has a very robust HTML5 support and all the Google stuff runs on it. And it runs on it inside Metro and it runs on it day one. So they're not a threat to Google from that point of view because the HTML5 platform is table stakes for everyone, and therefore Google is supporting
I completely agree with that statement, which is why I think that they're a threat to Google. If everything that Google does runs well on the Surface, and Google is trying to unify around the Nexus platform.
No, they're not. No. You're reading the strategy backwards. Google wants.
Well, first of all, that was John Toshek's point, not mine. But I.
No, it's not my point.
You said that there was
I never said anything like that.
This amazing thing that came out of nowhere. The only reason that I even care about Android is because of the Nexus 7.
I've had an Android phone because it was the first
know you have.
LTE.
I'm talking
I've had an
about
Android
me.
phone for years.
I know. Yeah, I cared about it because it had good chat on it, and iOS still sucks at that. That was my original reason, and that's still true. And it's very sad that Apple can't ship a decent chat app. But the point from Google's point of view is they want their stuff to run everywhere, and they don't want other people to be able to lock them out. And so the big point of them doing Android in the first place was to stop Apple and Microsoft locking them out of the mobile business. And they've won that one.
And who does that hurt right now?
Who does what hurt?
They've won that one. Who does it hurt? Does it hurt Apple or Microsoft?
It doesn't hurt Apple or Microsoft. They're both.
It just helps Google.
It helps. Google is in a different business. Google
it's
is
Google
not selling
versus
devices.
Microsoft
Google
in
loses
mobile.
money on
It's
Android,
not
but it makes
Google.
money on the web.
You've got this weird scheme of things that it has to be Google versus Microsoft in
I've
order
been
for
accused
Apple
of that
to be
for years.
the supreme leader of all. And so you want to have the two pigeons fighting each other so that the cat wins.
Is that how that works?
It just doesn't. It's not like that. It's not working.
I don't
like
hear
that.
an alternative to what I'm suggesting. So maybe you have some sort of other theory about who gets hurt by who in this, what appears to be a three-way race at this point. I mean, why are we talking about Sinofsky at all?
Microsoft's
Unless
losing
it
because the
indicates
whole
that-
world is shifting.
Right. The world is shifting. Sinofsky's firing is not interesting unless it says something about Microsoft's place in this struggle. Are they doing well or are they not doing well?
Oh, they're
And
not.
if they're doing well, who are they doing well against?
They're not doing well.
I agree. I think that's why he got fired.
But I don't think that's Sinofsky's problem. I think it's Ballmer's problem.
I agree. That's why he got fired.
Well, Ballmer is trying to keep the dogs away for another month. So he got rid of the guy who was going to take his job.
Right. So who's he trying? Where, if Microsoft is going to take share from somebody, as John pointed out earlier, they are strong in the enterprise on the desktop. Are they going to be strong in the enterprise on these Surface tablets, John?
I don't think so. I don't think. Certainly they'll be tested out in certain companies, but I don't. In the end,
I think your guys are nuts. I think they're going to be fairly strong, certainly stronger than Android's been on tablets so far.
No.
It's not the Surface. It's the Surface Pro that would make the enterprise more useful, not the Surface RT.
I agree.
The Surface RT is pretty
Pro
good.
is just like another new notebook, just running Windows 8.
The Surface RT is pretty good. It's
but it's ridiculously expensive and low res, and it isn't that good.
I'm an Apple guy, so I won't argue your point.
It makes
Does it even
it makes
support
the Mac things
VPNs
look
and
cheap.
Active Sync and all the things? I don't even know if it does.
What's
no
that?
one knows. They didn't go out with an enterprise story around it. They went out with a consumer story.
They have most of Office on it, and most of Office is pretty nice on it, actually.
Okay, so I'm not going to get an answer to my question. So why don't we just go around the table and wrap up and try and be as specific as you can about who the winners and losers are going to be between Microsoft, Apple, and Google. Start with Kevin.
Competing different things. Apple is going to beat Microsoft in hardware. Google is going to beat Microsoft in distributed web software. I'm not sure what Microsoft's going to beat anyone in that. I think they're in trouble.
Excellent. Robert Scoble.
I still say it's a Google and an Apple world, and I see a lot of good stuff happening at Google, and I'm probably going to buy another Apple product too now that I have a little bit of cash in my pocket.
Right.
I don't see Microsoft changing that behavior for me. The question is how does this stop the bleeding at Microsoft? I don't have a good sense of how good this is for the Surface computers and the Windows 8 laptops. I just don't have a sense of how many people are going to go Apple or Android instead of sticking with Windows 8. But Windows 8 now at least gets them in the game. It's better than I was expecting, and Sinofsky did a pretty good job. I have no clue what Microsoft's going to do to get sped up and get it into this race.
John Toshek.
I think 5 years ago, the most relevant companies in the enterprise were Microsoft, Oracle, IBM. Those three. SAP, of course. And in the consumer space, it was Microsoft, Nintendo, and a couple. And I'm just talking the consumers, probably Sony, but it was always Apple as number one. And today, the five most important in the consumer space are Apple, Google, probably Amazon,
Samsung,
of course, and then Microsoft. And that's a huge shift because consumers are kind of driving the enterprise story now.
Okay, and in the enterprise space?
Well, there's only one company that matters to me, of course.
Yeah.
But if we exclude that
by
one,
its lack of mention.
I'd say, well, Apple would be in the top 5, and that would be the only one of the ones I mentioned. Okay. Amazon would be in there. Even Rackspace would be higher than Microsoft now.
Well, thank you.
I agree with everything that you guys just said.
Open everything is going to matter a lot this next stage we're heading into.
Except that.
No, I think you're going to be forced to see that.
I'm going to be forced to see what? I mean, I use all these products.
Exactly, and your developers are building on open technologies. I know because you're a customer of ours.
Yeah, and they're also building on, allegedly closed technologies too.
Yeah,
and they're making lots of money on allegedly closed technologies, and that mix is not going to change.
The trick is to be more open than your competition. This new age we're heading into, if you don't have APIs, you're out. If you're in a competitive space where you have an open source competitor, that competitor is probably going to beat you. Probably. Or it's going to make life at least difficult for you.
I want to thank Rackspace, and particularly Rob Legess, for returning this show to the air, along with Mackie for returning this audio board to the studio. We've been on limping for the last few weeks. As a result, I want to thank New Tech and their TriCaster. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor. I want to thank John Toshek.
This has been brought to you by BlackBerry RIM.
How do you survive, man?
I don't use this.
Here's my Canon. Here's my Canon PDA.
Just pull it out of my drawer.
All right. Brought to you by HP's touchpad. There you go. Palm to the rescue.
As usual, Scoble wins. I want to thank Robert Scoble. And I want to thank Kevin Marks. There you go. And don't cut to the blank screen, but we do want to thank Keith Tier. Thank you to the folks in the chat room. I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who continue to be wrong. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.